Welcome to The World Today. I'm WAQAS Majeed Khan. Today we're covering three stories in our program. The first one is to do with the dossier that India provided to Pakistan on the Pulwama attack. The Pakistan government has rejected that dossier. We'll talk about that in detail. Our second topic is to do with the United States unilateral decision to accept the Golan Heights as Israeli property, and we'll talk about that in some detail as well. The United Nations is going to meet on the Golan Heights issue at Syria's request. Our third topic is also to do with India, where the US has said that they're still studying India's anti-satellite weapons test. We'll talk about that in some detail as well. And to talk about these issues, let me introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me for the conversation today, first of all, we have retired Colonel Mohammad MAHROOF Saab with us, and with him we have Mohammad SHAREEZ. Thank you very much for being here, sir. Sir, I'll begin with you. First of all, the dossier that has been provided to Pakistan by India, Pakistan has rejected it. The Foreign Office has formally conveyed to India the message that the initial information shared by the country in question regarding the alleged involvement of Pakistan-based elements in the Pulwama attack could not be substantiated with the imputation, and they also offered to examine any fresh proof whenever it is available. How would you rate Pakistan's response to that dossier, sir?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for inviting us in your program. You know, the Pulwama attack, it is a quite long story. Basically, Pulwama attack, if you go back into the history, or if you look at the incident, there is no doubt, and no even analyst or even official from Indian could deny this fact, that the the boy who carried out this attack, he was Kashmiri, and
Adil Dar,
and he belonged to the same place, Pulwama, exactly.
Local resident.
Local resident. And mind you one thing, he was arrested, he was apprehended by Indian forces, and there he was insulted, he was humiliated, and his leg was broken. And in retaliation, he carried out that attack. These are the facts which are available everywhere. Now, since the attack was to highlight and to mobilize their nation, Modi had different objective behind this propaganda, and he wanted to blame Pakistan on this particular account. So he, without even investigation, without thinking, they blame Pakistan. Unfortunately, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, they accepted, because the origin of Jaish-e-Mohammed is Pakistan. So certainly they try to
cash in, and they falsely acceded or accepted this atrocious attack, whereas they had nothing actually to do with it.
They did not. And that was the basis of blaming Pakistan to some extent. But unfortunately, since India blamed Pakistan, so they made some accusation and they provided those documents, but they have no relevance to this attack, and practically they did not have a concrete evidence whereby they could blame and they could provide a link with this attack from Pakistan.
Absolutely, sir. According to Pakistani authorities, Shiraz, all information provided by India was checked. There was no link with the Pulwama attack that could be established. And furthermore, we remain committed to take investigation or take any action if necessary, if fresh, proper evidence is provided. And that was also conveyed to the Indian High Commissioner, Mr. Ajay Bisaria. Furthermore, if we look at the contents of the dossier that was provided by India, it contained a few telephone numbers, some WhatsApp IDs, and those had also been sent to the United States-based parent company, but no response has been received as yet from them. So how can Pakistan really take any action if there is no actionable evidence being provided?
In such operations, I personally believe that it's nearly impossible to provide actionable information, like suicide attacks, how many suicide attacks Pakistan has gone through. It has been very, very difficult for us to ascertain the fact that who is from where, and then tracing it back to the...
Well, we had to conduct DNA tests in order to make sure who that person was.
We have to have an overall structural, you can say, input and overall structural response to what is taking place, was taking place in whole of Pakistan. So you cannot, so India on this account probably is unable, is just in a rush, in a way it has been behaving earlier to blame Pakistan out of without any information, because of the hunch, because of the hostility both these countries have, and because of the fact that Pakistan has been able to, you can say, defend itself against Indian designs from the Afghan border. And that has been a very major blow to the Indian policy vis-a-vis how to counter Pakistan or how to keep Pakistan on the back burner. So Pakistan has responded in a very, you could say, comprehensive manner, which has created a kind of frustration within India for that matter. As far as the situation in Kashmir is concerned, it is very clear. Even Aditya Roy, she was of the opinion you are
Arundhati Roy.
Arundhati Roy was of the opinion that you are doing something wrong in Kashmir, that's why there is a reaction. So you have to look inwards rather than blaming it on another country. And then again, not only blaming, pushing the whole world towards a nuclear kind of standoff, a nuclear credible escalation, which is a question mark. And then again, if we talk about the information which will come back from India, it is not going to further help the relationship where Pakistan is very cautious. Pakistan is still waiting for the elections before declaring it. We are moving towards normalization. There is still a credible threat from the Indian side. But over here, I would pinpoint the fact that Pakistan needs to understand that this is a state policy. It's not about Modi government. It's not about the Congress government if they come up in the next election. After the next election, it's a state policy. It's the establishment which is thinking this way, because that is where we have to target. We have to come up with some concrete policy measures. There are certain which were successful and there are certain which were not as successful, but we have to ensure that yes, this is something where this answer was expected, WAQAS, when you such operations, there are so many examples which are difficult to trace back, and especially when the locals are involved, the local environment is as such. So you can only blame somebody on the basis of hunch, on the basis of already existing, you can say, grievances and so on and so forth. Otherwise, the information which was given to Pakistan by India was expected with the same result which Pakistan replied. Pakistan clearly said that there is no such actionable evidence, and now then again it's going to further deviate, further you can say escalate the uneasiness, the uncomfortability between the bilateral relationship.
Right, and if we talk about the dossier, it further says that the information contained within that dossier was reportedly gleaned from open sources such as blogs, websites, and Facebook and Twitter. So does that really count as proper actionable evidence in any court of law?
No, these type of evidence, they cannot be counted as a legal, or they don't have any legal values as far as the court of law is concerned. And mind you one thing, in India and in Indian held Kashmir, the leadership of the Kashmiri and the Indian, they categorically gave, very categorically have said that the Pulwama attack has no link with Pakistan. It is basically the reaction of the brutality and the repression being carried out by the Indian force into the Kashmir, and this is indigenously planned, because one of I don't remember his analysis. He said that in Indian forces they can check 2 kg of beef, and why can't they check 750 pounds explosive? How it is possible? This is not possible if they are sincere, because this is not possible to carry such a big scale explosive to that from Pakistan to India. This is not possible. They very categorically they said. So I think this is just a make up point, and then just to satisfy their nation, because at the moment the Modi is preparing and he's going for this election. So he's trying to fight the election on the basis of nationalism, Hinduism, and he's trying to project his nation as a superior, and we are very strong nation. We can fight with these these Muslims, even other. Look at the if you look at this Indian profile, other minorities like Christian, Sikhs, they are also equally in trouble. Yes.
Absolutely.
So these problems, this is the basic on that. And just to make a point, this is a point scoring that you make a dossier, send it to Pakistan, and then say they are not taking any action. So this has no value as far as the legal consequences or legality of value of legal court of.
Well, Shiraz, furthermore, Pakistan has said that we've acted with the high sense of responsibility and extended full cooperation to the Indians, and we've done so in the interest of regional peace and security. We have sought further information, evidence from India to take the process forward. Do you think any further evidence is going to be forthcoming?
Well, it's going to be same kind of evidence which we have seen earlier. So what else? For the first dossier, supposed to be the most important dossier. So it means that there's nothing which can be case as a concrete, tangible proof against the involvement. The only thing which you have mentioned earlier is the acceptance from the group, the terrorist group that we have conducted it. That needs to be taken into serious account. That needs to be addressed because that's what is maligning Pakistan internationally.
Absolutely, that's a very, very valid point.
So that where we need to ensure, we have to come up with laws, we have to promulgate and you can say implement laws in letter and spirit to ensure that whosoever has made this claim should be held responsible. So that in the upcoming future, no such claim should be made from any organization, from any individual from our side, because this is hurting our national interest.
Absolutely. And furthermore, sir, do you think that the Foreign Office and the powers that be also shared the Indian dossier with other diplomatic personnel in Pakistan from different countries to show them, to prove to them that the evidence being provided by India is really very fickle and cannot lead to any actionable cause?
I think this is very, very relevant point. I think Pakistan Foreign Office must have a briefing of all the investors, and they should call them, and even they should call the journalists, and then they should call the different internationalists, and then they should show them all whatever have been given to Pakistan from India, and they should, because since there is no credible evidence, so why should we hide those things? There is no point of hiding those things, and we should be very transparent and open to the world that this is the blame game which is being carried out against Pakistan just to blame and just to defame Pakistan. And as you know, Modi many times he has said, I will isolate Pakistan, I will go, and he has been trying all these things on different forums. So I think this is the right time, and as a matter of fact, let me tell you one thing, after Pulwama, where so many negativity is there is one thing is that positive, that is the internationalization of the Kashmir issue, because most of the at international level, people are now recognizing that this tension between two nuclear power is because of the one issue, and that is in Kashmir issue. So unless this is resolved, it is not possible to live peacefully in this region. So I think Pakistan must highlight all these, whatever he has and what he has received from India, and he should share with all these different ambassadors, analysts, journalists, and all those forums which matters.
Absolutely, sir. Let's move on to our second topic, sir, and that is equally worrying, and that is when the United States has unilaterally decided to accept Israel's claim on the Golan Heights. That has created ripples and angst among many different countries of the world, including within the European Union, as well as obviously in the Arab world, sir. Well, as we know that the Golan Heights were captured in the '67 Middle East War, and from then on, sir, the United Nations Security Council declared it a null and void and without any international legal effect. And we've seen that this admission by the United States is a flagrant violation of the Security Council resolution, sir. How do we move forward?
I think if you, before looking at the political and other consequences, we should look at the timing. In fact, after 2 weeks, there is an election in Israel. And probably their prime minister, they wanted to have advantage by having this type of declaration from United Nations. So he wanted to give impression to his nation that I have achieved a lot. So ultimately, consequently, he trying to win the election and make the government. This is the first very, very important aspect of this declaration.
And another parallel that can be drawn between what's happening in India and the close coziness between Israel and India that we are witnessing, sir.
Yes, yes.
Very good point, sir.
Yes, this is the. And secondly, if you see if you look at the personality of Donald Trump, I think he is very unique sort of person. He always makes this type of declaration. Earlier, he has declared the Jerusalem.
Absolutely, sir.
He has
the capital.
And now he's and look at the world over, European Union, most of the European Union countries, China, Russia,
Yes,
Japan, they have condemned this declaration. But this person is not realizing that ultimately these type of declaration and they will create uncertainty in the Middle East as well as in world over. So I think the only objective which he is looking at the election, what is going to have in the next. Otherwise, you know, United Nations, the Secretary General of United Nations, he has said that at the moment peacekeeping forces are working at Golan Heights,
yes,
and they will keep on working as it is without amending or without changing their mandate. So
there are 880 UN troops on the ground in the Golan Heights, and
yes,
they've been there since 1974, sir.
74. So they will keep on working, and there won't be any change in their mandate, in their character, and in their role which they are already performing. So this means that this declaration will have no effect practically on those heights, but it will create unnecessary disturbance and then tension in the region, and moreover people in the in Muslim world, people will have no
well, that's the real question, sir. How do you think, Shiraz, the Arab nations are trying to come up with a united response? It seems that they're all scrambling at the moment, and there doesn't seem to be much unity among the Arab nations at the moment.
Well, that's true, and I think they are involved in proxy wars against each other, and we have seen many examples of that. Apart from that, I would
even though Arab capitals have known their displeasure, they've made their displeasure felt, and they've also, their reactions have poured in from various capitals, and they're all very angry reactions. But at the same time, there are a number of Arab countries that are allies of the United States, and now they feel embarrassed, and they have to show, I mean, what kind of face saving will they do after this decision?
This endangers the overall international law, then how can you question Russia for what it is doing in this region,
in Ukraine.
In Ukraine, and moving ahead for that matter,
Or Crimea.
Yes, Crimea and others. So how can you question them? And that is going to, because according to Pompeo, he said that it's going to stabilize the region. I don't know how on earth it's going to stabilize the region. It's going to further insecure the Arab nations.
What does it mean for the long-awaited Middle East peace plan that Mr. Jared Kushner has been working on?
It puts a very huge question mark on the whole process, because there is a clear-cut biasness on the side of the United States of America.
But this decision has also further humiliated the Arab allies of the United States. How will they diplomatically face that?
Well, look at that. This is not the first instance. It has been taking place in the Middle East for, I don't know, for 7 or more decades now. This embarrassment has been felt over there, but never acted upon this embarrassment. So to act upon this embarrassment, they have to have a collective response. But we can't see that collective response. The one good thing that we can take out of this is everybody has condemned it, including Iran, which is at times seems like a bigger enemy than Israel in the Middle East, as far as the Arab countries are concerned. So that distinction, these differences between us, we have to resolve those differences, because definitely Israel has an expansionist policy, and it is acting on those expansionist intentions. That is one. Golan Heights is very strategically important. It touched upon 3 different countries and has a very oversight on all these movements within those countries. So it's a very important strategic location. So that can undermine not only the international law, the peace and stability in the region, but also, question the future narrative. So it is going to be of utmost importance that such initiatives should not be taken up by a country which is considered to be a civilized, king of civilized world, which is considered to be the only superpower, and then which is considered to be someone who will abide and safeguard the international law.
Absolutely. And sir, there is also a perception, and Shiraz pointed it out, that Iran seems to be gaining more credence with this decision of the Americans because they've long held that you can't expect anything good coming out of this particular American administration. In fact, the Iranian president, Mr. Rouhani, denounced Mr. Trump's move as tantamount to colonialism and something that is unprecedented in this century. Would you agree with that perception?
I think to some extent this is right, because if you look at the response of the world over, European Union, Eastern countries, Middle East, except America, there is not a single country who supported this decision. So in that way, if you look at Iran is among those countries who has denounced this declaration, and similarly Europe. So to some extent, so you can say the world, all the world, they are gathering and they are getting closer and closer against the decision of America. So in that way, because at the moment Iran and American, they have the confrontation, and to some extent people say that this decision has been taken against the because Hamas, Hezbollah, and then Syria and this Iran. They are Shia community. They both, all of them, they are the Shia community. So to some extent, they have taken this decision against these people. So in that way, when this decision is against Iran or Syria and then Hezbollah, so this decision has been denounced by others. So virtually, they are supporting Iran in that way. So that's why the Iran is getting the strength. And earlier, you know, the United States, they have, you know, they have turned down from this agreement, nuclear agreement from, and other than America, all the rest countries, they are still in that agreement. So in that way, again, the American, they are alone, and all the European Union and other world power, they are along with the Iran. So in that way, they are gathering power, of course. But somehow the other, the American, they are not understanding this point. They are, because, you know, probably the Jewish lobby is very strong in America, and they are pushing American president and their establishment, and that's why they are taking such type of decision. And you know, this Trump, he's very emotional and frustrated type of person. He's prejudiced sort of person. So he take these decision. I think he's not much considering, or I don't know what is the problem with him, that he's taking these decisions lonely and unilaterally without consulting his allied, even NATO and the European. So virtually they are isolating by themselves, I think.
Very unfortunate, sir, but if you look at the reactions that have come in, all the Arab governments, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Jordan, Lebanon, they have all condemned the US move, but they are powerless to take any meaningful action, so it seems. And many observers now feel that this particular decision taken by Mr. Trump is like a godsend for the Iranians, and Iran will try to capitalize on the US-Israeli move to try and fill a void of official Arab leadership in the region because of such decisions and for the inaction by the other Arab countries. What is your opinion in this, sir?
I would say, I think that to an extent it suffices what Iran wants in the region. It definitely highlights Iran's point of view. It definitely highlights who is taking an anti-step toward this aggression because it has been declared as a sovereign part of Israel, and that basically is something which is dangerous in a way that otherwise the remaining parts which they have unlawfully occupied, they will also be declared in the coming days as a sovereign part of Israel. So this expansion, the greater Israel, is then again a reality, and which obviously puts a question mark on the responsible response from the Arab countries, especially headed by Saudi Arabia and the rest. So this definitely has to, the people, the public, the overall environment in the Middle East definitely questions how the Arab League is responding to this upcoming threat. And then again, Iran at the moment is something which is which has been pinpointing in this direction for long, and also trying to confront such initiatives as well. So we have to come up with this idea that we have to get out of this fact that Arab countries and Iran, they have a common interest. They are more closer to each other as compared to Israel and, for that matter, United States of America. Unless these lines are not clearly defined, I don't think so. These kind of you can say condemnations have never been effective earlier, and they will not be effective later on as well. A very important point raised by Colonel Saab, that was regarding the Shiite aspect of this conflict. So Arab countries will be living in a very misperceived world if they think that it is just a Shiite problem. No, it's an Arab problem. You have to address it in that direction, in that manner.
Well, do you think that the United States, sir, by this decision has isolated themselves within the UN and the UN Security Council? EU has rejected the US recognition of Israeli control over the occupied Golan Heights, and everybody else has also made their displeasure felt. But if you see what has been happening, sir, the US has disregarded the United Nations on many occasions before as well. So what kind of a question mark does that raise on the efficacy of the United Nations?
I think this is very important because one country is disregarding the whole world. This is very, very important. And the whole world, like, maybe the Middle East countries and then people like Pakistan may not be very powerful to take some action, but the European Union, Canada, and the Germany, and those people who like France, then United Kingdom, those who have veto power in United Nations, they should be taking very seriously as far as these type of decisions are concerned. And as a matter of fact, there's a need. I think there's a need to have a good leadership in this Europe,
in the Arab world,
and as well as in Europe. We should take very seriously. The leadership. That type of leadership, as we see in New Zealand, those people who say that who stand for the humanity, but their actions are different. Like this Donald Trump, they call that we are big democracy. We are caring a lot for the humanity, but their decisions are disregarding the humanity. Their decisions are disregarding the other countries, the other states. So there is a time.
They're downright antagonistic towards humanity, yes, and human rights, actually, yeah, sir. I just want to go over a few of the points that a number of international observers have raised, and among those, sir, is that when the Golan Heights were lost in the Arab-Israeli war, a part of the Sinai was also lost, and Egypt did win back the Sinai after a peace treaty with Israel. Then only Lebanon, through Hezbollah, managed to liberate Arab land from Israel's clutches. The OIC has been completely ineffectual in resisting the encroachment of Arab and Muslim land, and they also think that the American leader is playing with fire by trying to redraw the map of the Middle East in an imperial fashion. So all these objections are on the record. How do you think this is going to play out?
Non-state actors, terrorism, more violence, more indirect violence, proxy warfare, more bloodshed. That's what it is leading towards, because states are unable to do so, and there is resentment within the Arab society and Arab community. There will be some people who will fund these organizations. There will be some people who lead these new organizations, and this will lead to further escalation and destabilization of peace and security in the region. There is no other answer to this, and this is very important to understand this this upcoming phenomenon. As far as United States of America is concerned, there are so many things you have to consider. United States of America is not just another country. It has its say in the international organizations. It has its position in the international infrastructure. So you have to understand that, and then you also have to have a very keen eye about Donald Trump, the US president. He's a businessman. So he is definitely not only doing it for the sake of favoring the Israelis. There is a deep connection between them, but there are definitely takeaways from what he's doing for Israel in Middle East. The defense deals, the weapons deals with Arab countries and the United States of America. It's a very important thing to look into. Billions of dollars have been spent on war machinery by the Arab countries, and where do they buy that from? From United States of America. So this will further fuel, there will be more non-state actors in the region. This will not only give an excuse to the Israelis to have an aggressive posture within the region, but will also have an, you can say, a kind of reason for the Arab world to further enhance their clutches on Arab governments within the region, for that matter. And this is going to be a quagmire and ugly picture in the near future.
I just want to share the reactions of some of the other major powers in the world. For example, Britain, sir, Washington's closest ally, has said that the decision was in violation of Resolution 497 that declared Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights as null and void. France has warned that any attempt to turn away from the international law was doomed to fail, as the United States prepares to unveil its Middle East peace process. They think that the Middle East peace deal is dead in the water because of such decisions. And then furthermore, Russia has appealed to governments around the world to reject the United States' decision. How is this going to play out in the UN Security Council now that Syria has also invoked the UN Security Council to take a look at this matter, sir? How do you think it's going to play out?
You know, if any proposal or any new suggestion is coming, then definitely we have you know, 5 countries who have the veto power. Therefore, they will endorse that agreement, but the United States will veto that resolution. So again, that will not be passed. Unfortunately, this veto power, those countries who have veto power, this is the problem. This is the problem because the United Nations, on one side, it's a big economy. On the other hand, it has a veto power in the United Nations Security Council, and definitely it will have no impact practically as far as practicality is concerned. But definitely the pressure will develop on United Nations. But as you know, Ms. Sharez has pointed out, this is a very important point: the business, trade. You know, the American and Saudi Arabia, they have the billions of the agreement for the different weapon, different armament, and different.
Many fields.
So as the tension will escalate, as he has mentioned out, as tension will escalate, both the party will buy more armament, more different submarine or whatever they because ultimately their defense plan will again be made by the American. And they will, looking at their business, they will ask the Saudi Arabia and the other their allies that buy this one, buy this one, buy that. So ultimately they will have more agreement. On one side, they are trying to escalate this tension. On the other side, they are looking after their business. So as far as the United Nations Security Council is concerned, I don't think so. We should not expect much out of it. But this is as I have earlier mentioned that this also relates to the election of the Israel. So let's see after the election how the things will take place and how it move forward in the United Nations Security Force and otherwise in the relation of the countries.
United Nations condemnation, what else can you do about United States of America? Ask Europe, ask China, ask Russia, ask other countries, France and Germany.
So they just walk roughshod over whatever they want to do.
What actions can you put sanctions on them? Can you take some forceful actions against them? None, nothing. So, and when it comes to veto, there will be a great politics, a great diplomatic contest between the European countries and United States of America. I'm not sure whether China is going to do that, Russia is going to do that. It's going to be between the European countries and United States of America. Because on the other end, we have seen there are precedents where they are trying to, get hold of extra territory for that matter. So yes, the United Nations has then again, it has done some good work. It has been contributing to an extent, but it has been late in most cases. It has never been on time, and it has been very weak and very fragile against strong countries, and that's what we are seeing. League of Nations, look at that body. What happened eventually at the end of the day? So it's not that far from our history, from our vision. So we have to learn lessons. Then again, a very common saying that the only thing that we learn from history is learn nothing.
Absolutely, and then let's also talk about the reaction of the OIC. How effective would that reaction be?
United Nations reaction, how effective has that been? So you can very clearly understand and judge the reaction, the impact of that reaction. I'm not. That's as far as this this sectarian edge is available, is active in the Middle Eastern region. I'm not sure how sincerely this condemnation was passed against the act by United States of America.
Very unfortunate, but that seems to be pretty much the case.
One point we should remember that the United Nations Secretary General of Nations, he said the UN peacekeeping force will keep on operating and working effectively as they are working even today. I think this is a great humiliation of both Israel and the American also. Although materialistic, maybe it will, these type of proposal or these type of suggestion may not have materialistic effect.
In the in the future, if within 2 or 6 months after the Israeli election, Israeli government tells them to leave, then what?
But
they're not going to leave.
That remains
unless
to
there
be
is some
seen.
resolution passed by United Nations, they cannot withdraw. I don't think so.
They already have done it against all the resolutions that exist in the United Nations.
Yes, unfortunately. Let's move on to our second topic, which is equally worrisome, and that is the great pride that Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, announced that he has the capability of shooting down satellites in space. How do you view this particular development and the Indian strength now to take out satellites in space through their ballistic missile program, sir? How worried should Pakistan be?
First of all, as earlier I have mentioned, that they look at the timing of this ballistic missile test. Again, since they have the...
Coming back to the elections.
Election, because he is trying to move the people on the nationalism and Hinduism that we are the great nation, we are working very hard, we are moving very fast, we are developing very fast, and we are now in the list of the developed nation. And earlier, such type of test has been conducted only by United Nations, United States, Russia, and China. So India is the fourth one.
Now, India is the fourth one. But sir, one question that remains unanswered is that which satellite did they target? There is no mention of that. If it was a test missile strike, was it an Indian satellite that was targeted, or was it a satellite from any other country which was maybe not functional? What exactly are the details, sir? Those are completely missing.
They can't do it without permission, whether it's functional or not.
That's the point.
There should be some dummy sort of satellite, because for the test and trial, you always launch a dummy satellite, and then again you target at the same time. Otherwise, you cannot hit the satellite of any country which is owned by some country, because this will have serious consequences.
Exactly, sir. That was the reason why I asked this question. Well, sir, moving forward, the acting U.S. Defense Secretary, Mr. Patrick Shanahan, has warned other nations who might be considering anti-satellite weapons tests, like the one that India has carried out, not to make a mess in space, noting that debris might be left behind.
Space, a mess has already been made, so what are you waiting for, Yes, and very clearly you can see where these fingers are pointed towards. It's us, the Pakistanis. Now, it has definitely, it will kickstart, it has kickstarted a race, in other words, initiated by United States of America initially, and then obviously followed by other countries. And now, if in this South Asian region, if India does it, Pakistan will do it. And it will put pressure on the region. It will put pressure on Pakistan as well, because we are trying to change this you can say security dilemma insecurity dilemma in which the South Asian countries live, or for that matter the whole globe as in now. So that needs to be understood. It is not good. I don't know, Modi probably, then again Mr. Modi, Indian Prime Minister, is following an agenda of mutually assured destruction.
Furthermore, how can the United States say that when they're the ones who have actually boasted about weaponizing space and talking about having a space army or a space security force?
It's like
they've been speaking about that recently as well. So how can they say these things? It's the most blatant hypocrisy that you can see.
In 2014, Russia and China, they suggested such type of preventive measure.
And what happened to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty? Where's the idea of ridding nuclear weapons from the world? Where's that idea evaporated? That's the real question here, sir. But thank you very much for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Before we end the program, we would also like to mention that the Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, has launched an ambitious poverty alleviation plan. He says that 80 billion rupees has been earmarked for the EHSAS program, and it will ensure provision of food, shelter, education and health to citizens as a fundamental right. And we hope and we pray that this endeavor is indeed a success. On that note, it's goodbye. occupied Kashmir. So that has already been done. And Ms. Mogherini assured the Prime Minister of the EU's support towards his reform agenda, which coincides with the EU's core principles and values. And I think that is a very important and positive step for Pakistan. And on that note, sir, I would just quickly also talk about the Prime Minister's statement, where he said that unfortunately the meeting that was scheduled in Pakistan has been cancelled due to concerns expressed by the Afghan government. How are we going to be walking this tightrope between trying to bring peace to Afghanistan, facilitate the peace process, the conversation that is taking place between the Americans and the Taliban, and now the Afghan government, which feels isolated and left out in the cold?
Afghan government feels isolated, Afghan government feels insecure. That's why it has not been able to take a very clear stance with regards to the ongoing dialogue between the Americans and Afghan Taliban. This is not for the first time that Afghan government has objected on Afghan Taliban meeting a state representative. You would recall when Mohammed bin Suleiman was here, there was a meeting scheduled between Afghan Taliban, MBS and Pakistani Prime Minister, but under the government, under the pressure from Afghan government, that meeting had to be cancelled. I think more legitimacy Afghan Taliban seek, more problems it will create for the Afghan government, because simply Afghan Taliban have refused to talk to the Afghan government, because according to Afghan Taliban, the Afghan regime sitting in the Kabul, it lacks legitimacy. It's nothing but a puppet of United States of America. So it is important that they are talking to United States of America. But Afghan Taliban have not basically rejected the prospect of talk with Afghan government, but in the future, once the matters with the United States of America are settled, they are open for an intra-Afghan dialogue. So I think
what shape that's going to take, sir, that is really the moot point here, and that is the question mark. Our Prime Minister has also suggested that an interim government may be set up in order to bring that process about. Let's hope for the best, sir. Thank you very much for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, you heard the conversation, and as always, I like to say, please draw your own conclusions from what you've heard. And on that note, it's goodbye.